An adventurer party is doing their best to build a name and gain fame, and among them, the protagonist was assigned only support roles. He is in relationship with a girl in the same party, but later he discovered that their leader also had feelings for her. Though the leader's love was one-sided, they tried to keep everything hidden so it won't affect the party's harmony. However, as things continued, it became harder and harder to keep the secret. Now the question is remained, will their secret be exposed and cause trouble for the party, or will they overcome these complications and rise to become a famous adventurer group? A group of adventurers was fighting a wyvern, and the protagonist's role began with casting an enhancement spell, a magic shield, on his allies. He had to watch carefully for an opening to cast debuffs on the enemy, monitor the duration of the buffs he had applied, and stay focused on supporting from the rear. While they were battling, a girl drew the wyvern's attention. When it entered the target range, the protagonist used gravity bind to slam it to the ground. A magician girl followed up with a magic arrow, and the leader moved in to finish the creature. They finally defeated it, and wyverns no longer posed a real threat to them. The protagonist understood that the most important thing was for each member to fulfill their role correctly. In the Azure Adventurers, Margaret, the Beastkin warrior, served as the tank who endured enemy attacks. She said she was happy that they had set a new slaying record. The leader then asked Claire if she had gotten used to being part of the party, and Claire agreed since she was the newest member and served as their sorcerer. Kane, the leader, said he was glad she was doing well and told her to speak up if anything bothered her, because losing trust would cause the entire team to fall apart. Sophia, the healer, came over to check if anyone was hurt, and she noticed Margaret was bleeding. Margaret insisted it was just a scratch, but Sophia said it wasn't good and proceeded to heal her wounds. The last member was the protagonist, South, an enchanter who specialized in support magic. He strengthened his allies with buffs, weakened enemies with debuffs, and held a vital position in the party. He told himself to accept that his role wasn't flashy, but he still couldn't help feeling left out during combat. He noted that attackers and healers often filled multiple roles, which was why many parties didn't even include support mages. He had been dismissed from several parties before for that very reason. Margaret thanked him for the buffs, saying they allowed her to charge in without holding back. Kane also complimented him, saying the timing of Gravity Bind had been perfect, and that flying enemies were a nightmare for physical fighters. Kane added that South was truly the backbone of their party. South blushed at their praise and said he was only doing his job. He felt that he had finally found his place and that this was the best party he had ever been in. He also realized that one of the members meant more to him than the rest. One day, when they were all celebrating together after earning a large payment from the guild, the leader joked that if he wanted to keep up with Margaret, he would need 10 bodies to survive. Margaret suggested grilling some wyvern meat. South asked her to wait and use the fat skill, thinking it was a cooking spell that coated nearby ingredients in flavorful oil. Margaret thanked him, saying they could now make the meat nice and crispy. South thought there were many spells he still didn't fully understand, and he had only ever used that one while cooking. Kane then asked where Sophia was, and Claire replied that Sophia had gone to the temple that night for prayers. Kane commented that Sophia truly felt like a saint. Later that night, South went to the lake to meet Sophia and apologized for being late, saying it had been difficult to slip out. She told him it was fine, though her face was slightly flushed, and she wondered if the others might grow suspicious of her absence. South reassured her that everything would be fine. She said it had been a while since they had been alone together, and he agreed, noting that quests rarely gave them the chance. They were in a relationship, and Sophia, kind-hearted, beautiful, and admired by all, always made South feel a little overwhelmed. As he looked at her, she asked what was wrong. He admitted he often felt unworthy of her, saying he was short, timid, and didn't contribute as much in battle as the others. Sophia moved closer and told him she knew better than anyone how much he cared for his friends and how he always supported the party from behind the scenes, and that this was exactly why she had fallen in love with him. South blushed and wondered aloud if he should go back, saying that if she stayed out too long, the others might question it. As he turned, he thought about how they had been keeping their relationship secret to avoid awkwardness. Sophia stopped him and asked softly if they could stay together until sunrise. South hesitated, and at that moment Margaret approached the riverside, saying the night air felt cool and refreshing and perfect for sobering up. Shocked, South realized there was nowhere to hide. He asked Sophia to hold her breath, and they both jumped into the water. Margaret paused, wondering if someone had been there moments earlier. Underwater, South used reverse breathing, a spell that inverted air and water respiration, giving them time to stay submerged. Margaret sat nearby, and South thought about how they had ended up hiding even though they weren't doing anything wrong. Sophia noticed a cut on his chest and quietly healed it. They shared a quiet, flustered moment underwater, and South tried to stay calm as Margaret looked toward the river, sensing movement. She wondered if it had been a fish. South whispered to Sophia that now wasn't the time to be affectionate, but when he saw her red face, he felt she might have been thinking the same thing earlier, which made him even more nervous. He tried to steady himself and told her they had to stay quiet. Above them, Margaret muttered that it must be a big fish and said it would be perfect for breakfast. Just then, an ancient three-eyed fish swam toward them, ready to attack. South quickly cast reverse breathing on it, sending it shooting upward into the sky in search of air. Margaret witnessed the sudden splash and stared in disbelief as the creature emerged from the water. She shouted that she had caught a big one and said she would show it to everyone. As Margaret left, South and Sophia came out of the water, and South asked whether Margaret had gotten hurt. Sophia shook her head and said she was completely fine. South realized it had been her first time sharing such a close moment with him, and that night had been the first time they had truly expressed their feelings for each other. By the next morning, however, both of them had caught a cold. The leader asked what was wrong with them, and South explained that it had simply been chilly the previous night. Margaret wondered aloud whether the two of them had been together. South reacted with startled denial, insisting it wasn't true. Kane then mentioned that the innkeeper had told him something troubling. The Iron Blood mercenaries, famous for slaying dragons, had apparently been annihilated. The entire group was shocked to hear it, and Margaret asked if that wasn't the S-rank party, wondering what could possibly have taken them down. Kane replied that it was only a rumor, but the story claimed their downfall had come from a love affair gone wrong among their own members, and that the report said they had gotten into an argument in the middle of a battle and ended up turning on one another. South was horrified to hear such a thing, and Margaret asked Kane if he was really serious about what he had just said. Kane explained that it was surprisingly common for romantic entanglements to create cracks within a party's teamwork, which was why some groups forbade relationships altogether or formed same-gender-only parties to avoid such issues. Margaret said they didn't need to worry about anything like that happening in their own party. South and Sophia exchanged uneasy looks and stayed quiet, deciding it was better not to say anything as long as no one discovered their secret. After that discussion, the group set out again for their next adventure. South was thinking that a love triangle within the party might lead to their complete destruction, and he remembered his leader's words that their party would never fall apart over something like that. Suddenly, Margaret called out to him, saying the monster in front of her did not even flinch, no matter how hard she struck or slashed it, and she asked if he could do something about it. The leader stepped forward, stabbed the monster with his sword, and they finally defeated it. Afterward, they lit a bonfire inside the castle they were exploring. While they were cooking, Margaret remarked that dungeons were extremely gloomy and always got on her nerves. She added that she wanted to get out soon since they had already been there for 3 days. Camping had become easy thanks to the ancient ruins around them, and they were close to the underground lake where the magic stone was located. The leader told everyone to rest for the night, but Margaret, curious about treasure hunting, asked South to accompany her. South refused, explaining that adventurers had already picked the ruins clean and nothing valuable was left. Sophia finished preparing the soup and asked everyone to eat. While they were having it, she complimented Deepak for his work. Then she looked at South. Both of them blushed, and she handed him his portion. South reflected that ever since the day they were both inside the lake, he had been unable to stop thinking about her. Deepak asked him why things seemed awkward between him and Sophia recently. South, embarrassed, insisted that nothing was wrong. As Deepak was about to probe further, South wondered if Deepak had discovered his feelings for Sophia, but Deepak only questioned whether the two had gotten into a fight because something felt off. Deepak added that such matters were his responsibility as the leader, so if anything was troubling South, he should help him. South thanked him, but repeated that nothing was wrong. Later that night, while everyone was sleeping, Sophia woke South up, saying she wanted to talk to him about something and asked him to come with her. South picked up a lamp, and the two walked ahead. He wondered if she was leading him somewhere secluded where no one would notice them. When they found a door, Sophia said it looked like a room. Inside, they discovered a total mess, along with leftovers on the table. South remarked that it seemed to be a mess hall once used by adventurers. Seeing there was no other exit, he cast a wizard lock on the door so that only he could open it. Then he asked what she wanted to talk about. She brought up the Iron Blood mercenaries. South wondered if she believed something similar could happen to their party, but he insisted their group would never fall apart over an issue like that, and the depth of their bond was engraved in that scar. She agreed. The scene reminded them of the time before Rhea joined their party. They had taken a quest and were facing a large monster. Margaret said they had finally defeated all of them, and Deepak pointed out that they had barely cleared the quest and were completely exhausted. He added that it would be dangerous if another monster appeared in their weakened state. As they were heading back, one remaining monster, still alive, prepared to throw a spear at Sophia's back. South noticed it and took the hit himself. Everyone was shocked, and Margaret quickly finished off the monster. The others rushed to South to see if he was all right. Sophia tried to heal him, but South told her not to worry about Ada and to save her mana for her mana on the journey back. They were shocked, and Deepak urged South to stop saying such things, assuring him that they would heal him soon. South replied that if the entire party were wiped out, everything they had done would be meaningless. He said he believed the only good he had ever been able to offer was supporting them, and that it would be fitting if his life ended that way. He added that he was genuinely happy to be dying in the arms of a saint. But when he opened his eyes afterward, he found himself lying on a bed with his chest wounds fully treated. Confused about where he was, he suddenly saw Sophia rush in with relief, overjoyed that he was safe. South wondered why she had taken such a risk to heal him. The others were equally relieved and questioned whether he truly expected them to abandon a teammate. South felt deeply grateful. From then on, Sophia devoted her care to him, and gradually romantic feelings grew between them until they eventually became lovers. The scene returned to the present, where South said the Blue Adventurers had saved his life and were the best party he could ask for. Sophia replied that it was thanks to him that they had all made it back safely and she owed her life to him. She hugged him, saying he was not just a patient and teammate but an irreplaceable person. South blushed and apologized for acting cold during dinner, explaining that Deepak had only been worried the two of them were fighting. Sophia admitted that she was at fault as well, as she tended to become overly self-conscious around others. South then asked whether she hated what they had done in the water. She denied it and said she had been happy to be with him. They looked at each other and repeated the same intimate gesture once more. While they were doing so, they suddenly heard Deepak knocking on the door, asking whether Sophia was inside. He noticed the door was locked and told them to wait while he tried to open it. South and Sophia immediately realized that the situation could turn bad for them. Margaret woke up as well and approached Deepak to ask what was wrong. Deepak immediately asked for her help to break down the door, explaining that he had heard Sophia scream from inside. Shocked, Margaret prepared to smash it open. South realized that with Margaret's strength, the door would not last even a minute, and using an advanced spell to escape would take far too long. Looking around, he suddenly came up with an idea involving the very place where he and Sophia had been moments earlier. By the time Margaret finally broke down the door, Deepak rushed in, calling out Sophia's name, but no one was there. He told Margaret to stay alert, saying the enemy might be hiding somewhere, and that a camouflage spell could be involved if someone had used a magic key to access the room. As they inspected the kettles and plates nearby, Margaret commented that the place seemed to be a dining hall. Deepak wondered if he had imagined the sounds he heard, but then Margaret pointed out that South was missing as well, which meant something had clearly happened to both of them. Deepak told her they needed to split up and search the area. After they left, South opened the lid of the large box where the kettles and plates had been stored. He and Sophia had been hiding inside it. He asked Sophia if she was all right, and she nodded as they climbed out. Sophia admitted she had thought it was just a stone table used for storage, but now realized it was an actual coffin containing an old skeleton. South said it was most likely a royal tomb, and that the room they were in was probably the main chamber. He noted the massive stone slab outside, assuming it had once served as the seal for the entrance. After the place had been looted long ago, adventurers must have installed a door and repurposed it as a room. Sophia told him he was amazing for noticing all that. South replied that it had only been a coincidence, and what mattered more was that they had successfully fooled the others. Sophia suddenly grew sad and wondered aloud whether they should tell the truth about their relationship to everyone. She said their whole group would be shocked, since no one expected something like that to happen between them. But, she added, their three companions were trustworthy and would surely accept their relationship. South admitted that sneaking around made him feel guilty as well. Sophia said she wanted everyone to acknowledge their bond, maybe even bless it. South smiled, agreed, and said they would tell the others the truth. As long as they were careful not to disrupt the harmony of the party, the others would understand. He added that once they finished the quest, he would speak to Deepak himself, and then they could finally call themselves lovers openly. They hugged each other, and meanwhile, Deepak was searching for Sophia, hoping she was safe. Margaret told him to calm down, suggesting that South was probably with her. Soon after, the two finally returned, and both Deepak and Margaret were relieved that South and Sophia were unharmed. South apologized for worrying them. Sophia took the blame, saying she had been unable to sleep, had wandered away from the camp, and accidentally run into a monster. She explained that South had noticed and driven it off. Deepak let out a sigh of relief, grateful that both of them were safe. South added that the monster had not been a serious threat, and thought to himself that their acceptance might not be as difficult as he feared. The next day, Margaret woke up with the others in the fresh morning air. When they stepped outside, Deepak said they had collected plenty of magic stones and the quest had been a success. Margaret suggested they go celebrate with drinks and receive their reward, but Deepak said they should rest for the day first. South then called out to Deepak, saying he wanted to speak with him privately. That night, Deepak visited him. South apologized for calling him, even though he must have been tired, but said it was something important. Deepak encouraged him to speak and first apologized himself, saying he had never thanked South properly for protecting Sophia. He added that ever since South had risked his life for her, he had wanted to express his gratitude both as a leader and as a man. South was confused, and Deepak said that South was the only one he could share his real feelings with. The scene shifted to Sophia, who reflected on herself as a cleric of the earth goddess Diana. She acknowledged that she had given in to desire and indulged in forbidden passion, yet felt no regret because it had been born from love, and she entrusted everything to the goddess. The scene returned to Deepak, who admitted that he loved Sophia, and that even love felt like a weak word for how he felt. South felt as if the ground had dropped out from beneath him. Deepak continued, explaining that his feelings were entirely one-sided and that Sophia most likely had never noticed, so he asked South not to misunderstand. He also revealed that he and Sophia had known each other long before South or Margaret joined the party, and that when he first met her, he had nearly forgotten how to breathe because such a pure, radiant saint was standing before him. At the same time, Sophia was offering herself wholly to the goddess, overwhelmed by the memory of South's touch that still left her heart racing. She had never experienced such feelings before, and did not know how to handle them. She prayed for the goddess to lend her strength. In response, she received a blessing of the holy spell that enhanced weapons with divine power. As she continued her prayers and devotion, the intensity of her emotions grew, echoing through her entire body. Meanwhile, Deepak was telling South that, with every adventure he had shared with Sophia, his feelings for her had only grown stronger. But as the leader, he had never confessed, believing he needed to put the entire party before his own heart. He also admitted he lacked confidence that he could make her truly happy. Still, he said that if the right moment ever came, he would surely tell her how he felt. South was stunned by everything he heard. Deepak apologized, saying it must be a burden for South to listen to all of this, but asked him not to tell Sophia and to forget the conversation entirely. South agreed. Deepak said that keeping those feelings inside had been painful, and South was the only one he felt he could confide in. He thanked South sincerely, then reminded him that he had wanted to talk about something important. South replied that it wasn't anything serious and could wait for later. Deepak insisted he shouldn't worry about troubling him, and urged him to speak freely, but South thanked him and said they could discuss it another time. As he headed out, he wished Deepak good night. South walked into the forest and began retching from the weight of everything he had learned. Deepak loved Sophia. Deepak had loved her long before South ever entered her life, and had held back out of responsibility. South felt as if he had stolen Sophia away from him, especially now that he knew what had happened between them. He realized he could never tell Deepak about it. For the sake of the party's unity, he believed that the truth must remain hidden from everyone. All of them were staying in the trading city of Ranadome, a place renowned across countless lands as a heaven for adventurers. Those chasing dreams of striking it rich gathered there, where shops selling gear and inns lined the lively streets. Among them, the Adventurer Guild constantly overflowed with parties seeking quests. South once checked the guild board and found a request sent directly from the magic city of Magellan, a metropolis at the forefront of ancient and modern magical research. He wished he could obtain the spell mentioned there. He also had no idea, and never imagined, that Deepak would come to love Sophia. Since Sophia was currently with South, neither of them could afford to let anything slip, which was why he felt the need to master magic in case the situation worsened. He took the quest, met his party, and told them the rewards were excellent. He asked Deepak for his opinion. Deepak said the request involved dealing with gates that had been going haywire lately, and that the job did not sound too bad, then asked what the others thought. Claire agreed because she wanted to see the magic city. Sophia also agreed. Deepak then said they should take the quest. Sophia seemed worried, but Deepak added that they could not leave immediately, not until Margaret had settled down. South said he had not seen her that day. Deepak explained that it was a full moon, so it was her monthly issue. Afterward, when they stepped outside, Deepak said it would take a few days to reach Magellan City, so they should stock up first. Suddenly, a boy bumped into him. Deepak told the boy to be careful because it was dangerous, but then noticed his money pouch was gone. The boy had been walking around happily, making it easy to steal. Deepak quickly caught up to him, calmly grabbed his hand, and told him not to steal. While taking back his pouch, he even gave the boy a few coins and told him to buy something. The boy thanked him and left. Deepak then remembered a man's words, that if he ever wanted something, he should simply take it, even if he had to kill for it, because something that exists only once is what truly holds value. Deepak grew angry at the thought, insisting he was nothing like that man. The scene shifted to the hot spring where Sophia was bathing. She had hardly gotten any time alone with South lately and wished she could finally tell everyone about their relationship. While thinking of him, she began acting inappropriately, whispering his name. Suddenly, South fell from the sky into the spring. She rushed to check if he was all right and asked him to stay with her for a moment. When he woke up and saw her, she felt relieved that he wasn't hurt. She asked what had happened for him to fall from the sky. South said a harpy had tried to steal cargo in town, so he had chased it using a levitation spell, recovered the goods, but lost his balance and fallen. She admitted she had been scared. South then noticed her state and asked why she was like that. Looking around, he realized it was the bath, apologized, and started to leave. At that moment, Sophia arrived and asked whether he had told Deepak yet. South said it wasn't the right time, since Deepak had been working hard to help their party become a famous one, and telling him now might unsettle everything. He thought he couldn't reveal the real situation to Sophia, fearing it would cause complications. Sophia said she might have been rushing and would leave the decision to him. South thanked her and promised to tell Deepak when the time was right. As he turned to go, she teasingly asked him to stay with her for a while. South was shocked at her behavior in such a place. She explained that they could never be alone in town because too many eyes were on them. She moved closer, and the two shared a kiss. South felt the same way she did, and they were about to go further when they sensed someone approaching. They quickly hid, and the person who arrived turned out to be Rhea. Rhea sat down with her staff to bathe, and South worried that if she spotted them, it would be a disaster. While he was unintentionally looking in her direction, Sophia covered his eyes and told him not to look. The rustling they made caused Rhea to grow suspicious about someone being nearby. South thought it would be bad if they were discovered, so he created a wall of mist, hoping it would block Rhea's view without drawing suspicion. While the mist held, he and Sophia quietly slipped away. Rhea used life detection magic and sensed two living beings inside the fog. She demanded to know why someone was sneaking around and ordered them to reveal themselves. South realized the situation had become serious. Rhea had not been with their party for long, but he knew she was a top-class sorcerer, unbeatable in magical combat and practically his natural enemy. Rhea warned that if they did not come out, she would enter the mist herself. South panicked, wondering what they should do. If Sophia revealed herself, it would immediately look suspicious. He briefly considered escaping with Levitate, but he could barely handle the spell alone, let alone while carrying Sophia. Then he noticed the full moon and understood they had only one option left. Rhea cast a shockwave spell to clear the fog, and instead of two people, she found two wolves. The wolves grabbed their clothes and fled. South, who had turned into the dark-furred wolf, checked whether Sophia, the white-furred one, was all right. They both understood that the full moon had allowed them to use their beast transformation just in time. Sophia asked whether South thought Rhea had recognized them. South answered that they were safe, since animals wandering into the hot springs was not unusual at all. Nisha said that they were finally together, and that they began doing things while still in their wolf forms. After everything, they finished and turned back into humans. She told him it was all right, and that he had only caught her off guard with how passionate he was. She dressed herself and said she would head back first. South wished for her to be safe and thought it would be fine, reminding himself that he would make sure no one ever discovered their secret. Later, while South was walking, he sensed something unusual and wondered if it was a monster, which would be troublesome. But before he could react, someone suddenly leaped onto him and knocked him down. He saw that it was Margaret, but in a strangely unusual state. South was shocked to see her and immediately thought that it was the full moon night, the night that came once every month when Margaret went into heat. Since she was a beastkin, her desires spiked to an uncontrollable level during that time, and she lost all self-control. To avoid causing trouble for everyone, she usually hid away alone in the wilderness, which had become an unspoken rule. South felt he had been careless for forgetting about it and wandering straight into the forest. She began acting lewdly toward him while he kept asking her to calm down, but she clearly wanted to do things with him. He realized that Margaret was in no condition to reason with him and that she would attack him at this rate. Reluctantly, he used restraint magic to bind her with ropes, thinking it would stop her from moving. He disliked using such methods on a comrade, but he couldn't betray Sophia and needed to protect his chastity. Margaret, angered, shattered the ropes with ease, which left South in shock. She was clearly about to force herself on him. He reminded himself that the physical strength of beastkin far surpassed that of humans. A tank would normally wear heavy armor, but Margaret chose light gear to maximize mobility, charging across battlefields with only a giant shield, and her body was strong enough to endure a wyvern's strike. If she wasn't stopped, a human would be nothing more than a toy to her. South tried resisting her, but he couldn't withstand her overwhelming strength, so he used a magic lock on her lower body so she wouldn't be able to do anything. This only caused her to start crying before she leapt toward him again out of frustration, and he stopped her once more. Suddenly, he sensed that something strange was happening while Margaret continued crying uncontrollably. After some time, she collapsed away from him, and South wondered if she was all right. He looked up at the moon, realized no one had seen anything, and decided he should undo the spell while he still could. The next morning, Ria, South, Sophia, and Deepak were prepared for their journey. Deepak said it would take around 4 or 5 days to reach Magellan, the city of magic, and asked if everyone was ready. South was still shaken by what had happened between him and Margaret the previous night, and the situation felt extremely awkward. Margaret eventually arrived with her shield, trembling as she stood before South. She apologized for the previous day, saying her reason had simply disappeared and that she hadn't meant anything strange. It had all been pure instinct. South agreed, admitting that he shouldn't have been careless enough to enter the forest that night. He told her not to worry, since they were comrades. Hearing that, she calmed down and slapped him lightly on the back, saying he was right about them being comrades. South then asked her to keep the entire incident between the two of them. She agreed, just as Sophia approached, asking if something had happened. South replied that it was nothing, and asked if she had made it back safely the night before. She said she had, and South thought to himself that even though something had happened between him and Margaret, he hadn't gone all the way, so it wasn't cheating, especially since he had Sophia by his side. With everything settled, they finally set out on their journey to the magic city of Magellan. It was a place where massive magical energy flowed, and the city prospered by harnessing that power. Cutting-edge magical research was conducted there, and any spell, including forbidden magic, could be obtained. South went to a secluded location where there was no visible entrance. He touched a symbol and invoked guiding darkness and deepest light to lead him to the truth. A crow appeared and asked what he was seeking. South thought that it was the dark sorcerer who dealt in spells forbidden above ground. He said he had heard that any kind of spell could be obtained there, and that he desperately needed the spell of oblivion. The crow was startled, recognizing that the spell he wanted was used to erase a target's memories. From a human rights standpoint, and due to the risk of political misuse, the Magic Association had banned it. South added that he didn't want to rely on something so extreme, but it was his last resort. If his relationship with Sophia were ever exposed, it could turn into the worst possible situation. The crow commented that it was selfish yet amusing that South wanted to strip someone's memories, but warned that it wouldn't come cheap. South showed a pouch full of money, but the crow demanded more. South explained that he would use the reward from his next quest to cover it, and that he could manage with that. The crow remarked that the aura he sensed from South was fascinating. Then he transformed into a human form and said he would waive the price just for the chance to encounter such a fine specimen. He told South to take off his coat. South obeyed, and the man took out a locket, moving closer to examine the mark on South's chest. A light appeared over South's chest, causing him sharp pain, while the man wondered what kind of result they would obtain and said it was going to be entertaining. He explained that the spellbook belonged to Tao and handed it to South. South questioned what the man expected him to do with it, and the man replied by asking whether South would be purified by darkness or swallowed by flames, saying he was eager to see the outcome of the experiment. He then transformed back into a crow and flew away. Afterward, a group of adventurers gathered in the ruins, where a priest explained that the lands around the area had been corrupted by overflowing magical energy. As a result, rift gates to other worlds occasionally appeared, and the adventurers' task was to close all of them. Someone from the ruthless Durakan party asked if they simply had to shut the holes, noting that it didn't seem too difficult. The leader of the Black Cats Under the Moon party pointed out that monsters had poured out of the gate last time as well. Even though they had only been small fry, they were able to slip through narrow rifts. Finally, Deepak, the leader of the Azure Adventurers, urged everyone to work together and finish the job. The leader of the ruthless Durakan party retorted that Deepak shouldn't say things like that, and that whichever party closed the most gates would receive the biggest share of the reward. Margaret grew angry after hearing such rude remarks directed at Deepak, but South calmed her down. After a while, when they entered the ruins, they found that a new rift had appeared. The bug pointed it out to Rhea, saying it was a gate and that he was counting on her. She agreed and used the Marina Sandros rogue attack to destroy it. South understood that Rhea was using ancient magic far beyond his level, and he thought that if only he had more power, he could actually be useful to everyone and protect Sophia as well. Meanwhile, the Black Cats under the Moon Party were gathered around another rift. Without warning, a giant hand emerged from the hole, grabbed their leader, and crushed his head, leaving the others in shock. They tried to fight, but their party was wiped out in moments. The other adventurers stood stunned, and as they prepared to engage, the monster unleashed flares that burned them all. They soon realized that a greater demon had appeared. It looked down on them, calling them pitiful, lowly creatures, and declaring that it would devour their souls as its sacrifice. South's role was that of an enchanter, while Sophia was the healer of the party as well as his secret girlfriend. They had kept their relationship hidden from their teammates and had survived many close calls while doing so. He had never imagined, however, that they would face a complete wipeout at the hands of a demon. The demon introduced himself as Savas, the wanderer of eternal darkness, who had appeared there merely to play. South thought it was a great demon, one strong enough to trouble even an S-rank party, and believed that his own party was no more than insects in comparison. Deepak told the party that he would hold Savas back and asked everyone else to escape. South was shocked and said Deepak couldn't possibly handle it alone. Deepak replied that he had seen beings like Savas before on the battlefield, where a summoned greater demon had slaughtered around 300 enemy soldiers and had almost wiped out an entire allied battalion. His explanation left everyone stunned, and South wondered if Deepak's father had been a noble. Deepak added that Savas had not fully emerged from the gate, and he would try to create an opening for everyone to run. As Savas prepared another fire attack, Deepak warned that the situation was bad and they might all be hit. Margaret rushed ahead and raised her shield to protect the group. Savas immediately struck her with his claw, knocking her back against the wall. She taunted him, wondering aloud if that was all he could do, saying even a wild boar hit harder. Savas warned her to watch her mouth. She questioned whether he was just trying to draw aggro like a tank. Savas then revealed that she was the Beast King, a half-beast, half-human being despised by demons and scorned by humans, and asked why she would risk her life for people who saw her as nothing but a tool. His words made her recall her past when humans had killed her family and people. She clenched her fists, shaken. He went on to say that Margaret wasn't just a tool, but a precious comrade to them all, united regardless of their differences. Then he announced he would use a firebomb explosion. Margaret once again moved forward and blocked it with her shield, but she was severely injured. The group fell back as Savas rose again. South thought Savas was far too strong and that they would all be killed at this rate. If only he had power. He desperately wanted to protect Sophia and everyone else. As that thought burned in his chest, he suddenly screamed. Sophia grew terrified for him, and Savas declared that it was the end for South. When Savas tried to use his fire breath once more, its power was greatly reduced, shocking everyone. His movement speed and attack power also dropped to a third. Confusion spread as the party wondered what kind of debuff could cause this. Margaret said her skin wouldn't stop crawling. Sophia questioned the dreadful feeling, and Rhea wondered if it was the demon's power. Every stat of everyone near South had begun to fall. They saw Savas trembling as he demanded to know what South was. South had activated the skill Fear, which reduced the stats of all creatures within a 30-meter radius by 3 levels. The others were stunned, and Savas called South an inferior creature. As Savas advanced to attack again, South used Flash and Thrust, absorbing Savas's life force. Savas was stunned that his energy had been drained. South called out to Rhea, asking if she could still move and telling her to open the gate. She opened it despite her injuries, while South continued to draw Savas's attention. South used Able Eye to inflict paralysis, panic, and confusion on Savas. Rhea also launched her attacks at the demon. Working together, they pushed Savas back, telling him to return to where he belonged. They finally forced him into the opening, and before his last arm could retreat, they destroyed the gate, leaving the severed limb in their world. Everyone felt relieved and overjoyed that they had succeeded. Margaret rushed towards South, worried for him, but he warned her not to approach, saying he couldn't control himself. He wondered what that power was. Margaret asked what had happened to him, and Sophia, deeply worried, moved closer despite his warning. Even Deepak was anxious for her. Sophia placed her hand on South's chest, telling him it was all right and that he didn't need to worry. She would heal him no matter how many times it took. When South looked at her, the frantic beating in his chest finally eased and he collapsed into her arms. Margaret immediately checked his condition. They carried South to the inn, laid him on a bed, and let him rest while Sophia sat beside him to care for him. Margaret, worried about South's condition, went to ask Sophia for an update. Sophia told her not to worry because South's condition had stabilized. She also suggested that Margaret get some rest since she had been their shield during the fight with Savas and was heavily injured herself. Margaret said it wasn't a big deal. Protecting her comrades was her duty, and pointed out that Sophia hadn't slept either and had been busy patching everyone up, so she should also take a break. Sophia agreed, saying the ordeal had finally ended and that they had survived thanks to everyone's combined strength. She added that their party truly was remarkable, and she intended to continue fulfilling her role as a healer in the name of the Earth goddess Diana. Margaret was then reminded of her past. The Beast King had been fighting against human knights, who believed beastmen were not human. She had been very young at the time. Her father, worried for her safety, had shielded her and was stabbed in front of her eyes. A man had arrived, declaring that heretics disrupted the order of the earth and brought chaos to the rivers and forests. He had ordered his knights to exterminate them all in the name of the earth goddess Diana, leaving no survivors. The memory faded as the scene returned to the present, where Sophia asked Margaret if something was wrong. Margaret denied it and left. Around the same time, Deepak was standing alone near the river, while Ria was absorbed in reading her books. Two men were carrying a small prison cage with extreme caution, as the creature inside was said to be an unbelievably dangerous monster. Meanwhile, South finally woke up, confused about where he was. He noticed Sophia sleeping while sitting beside him. When he called out to her, she woke up happily, relieved that he was completely fine. Later, the entire party gathered for a meal, and everyone encouraged South to eat as much as he wanted since he had been unconscious for 10 whole days. South apologized for making everyone worry. Deepak said they had survived only because of him and would have been done for without his help. Margaret agreed, but she wanted to know what that strange power of his had been. South admitted he had no idea. Margaret wondered if he had been hiding such an incredible ability all along and suggested he might secretly be a top-class S-rank sorcerer. South denied it, but thought he might have some clue. Perhaps the necklace he had received from the Dark Mage had caused his heartbeat to race. The power he used hadn't come from his desire to protect everyone or Sophia. Instead, it felt like something awakened under the demon's influence. He realized it was a power of darkness. He looked at Sophia and subtly signaled that he would wait for her under the bell tower. When she arrived there later, South showed up late and apologized for calling her out but leaving her waiting. She told him it was fine as long as he was safe. South thanked her for taking care of him. They leaned in for a kiss, but from below, Margaret spotted South at the top and called out to him, asking what he was doing up there. Sophia quickly hid by crouching down. South told Margaret he was simply enjoying the view. She informed him that one of the monsters they had been transporting had escaped into the city, and that it was apparently a dangerous one. Deepak, Margaret, and Ria had already split up to search for it. South offered to help as well. Margaret asked him to tell Sophia what was happening if he happened to run into her. After Margaret left, Sophia peeked out from her hiding spot and checked inside the bell, only to find the escaped monster already there. South agreed with Margaret's instructions, but in that very moment, the monster used hypnosis on Sophia. Sophia moved unusually close to South, and he was startled, asking what she was doing. She said something felt wrong, that her head was fuzzy, and that she suddenly felt an overwhelming urge she couldn't explain. South was shocked, and at the same time Margaret called out to ask if something was wrong. South quickly replied that it was nothing and said he would go search the area, telling her to leave it to him. Margaret agreed and left, trusting him. South then asked Sophia what had happened to her so suddenly. She apologized, saying the strange feeling was getting stronger, but that she thought it would go away soon. She attempted to use a holy blessing to steady herself, claiming it would help. South noticed that her behavior was becoming more and more unusual, far from her normal self. He started to realize something wasn't right. When they finished talking, he sensed something was wrong and checked inside the bell tower again. The monster was staring at them from within, and the moment South noticed it, the creature tried to leap away and escape. South wondered if it was the same monster Margaret had mentioned, and if Sophia's strange behavior was caused by it. He called out for the creature to stop. Sophia, still affected, insisted on coming with him. Knowing he couldn't leave her alone in that state, South lifted her and used his movement-enhancing jump skill to leap from the tower in pursuit. As he chased the monster across rooftops, the ceiling of an old house gave way beneath them, causing both South and Sophia to fall inside. South immediately asked if she was unharmed. She insisted she was fine, but the strange influence was still affecting her, making her increasingly restless and unable to control herself. South was shocked that the effect persisted even in such a tense moment, and he realized just how dangerous the monster's hypnotic power truly was.